On this edition of Great Lakes Now, the search for meteorites at the bottom of Lake Michigan.
No attempt to recover a meteorite from a major body of water has ever been done before, so if we can pull it off, this will be a world first.
What health effects could emerging contaminants like PFAS be causing in us? And the restoration of an urban waterway in Milwaukee.
It changed into not only a concrete removal channel restoration project, but into a huge flood management project.
This program is brought to you by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, Lori and Tim Wadhams, the Richard C. Devereaux Foundation for Energy and Environmental Programs at Detroit Public Television, the Polk Family Fund, Eve and Jerry Young, the Americana Foundation, the Brookby Foundation, and
the Consumers Energy Foundation is committed to serving Michigan, from preserving our state's natural resources and sustaining our future, to continuing business growth, academic achievement, and community involvement. Learn more at consumersenergy.com/foundation.
and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ward Detweiler. Welcome back to Great Lakes Now. We've told you about invasive species before, plants and animals from other continents that have found their way into the lakes. But a couple of years ago, something came into Lake Michigan from outer space. Today, we bring you the story of the people who are trying to find it.
In February 2017, a bright green orb lights up the sky from Chicago to Sheboygan and beyond.
National Weather Service confirming the overnight reports of a flash in the sky, saying it was possibly a meteor streaking across Wisconsin and Illinois.
It's caught on cameras across the Midwest. Scientists determined that the fleeting fireball is, in fact, a meteor that crash-landed in Lake Michigan.
We think that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 feet across. So that's a large boulder of rock, probably massing hundreds of pounds, if not tons. They heat up to about 10,000 degrees, and the outer parts start to vaporize. They break apart into small fragments, and if we're lucky, some pieces survive to hit the ground. Meteorites are incredible repositories of data from the very formation of our solar system. By studying them, we can find out things that we can't find out from any Earth rocks or moon rocks even. We get the basic forming blocks of our solar system.
The meteor splashdown also catches the attention of Chris Bresky, teen programs manager at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago.
Space, for a lot of people, can feel very cold, dark, dead, distant. Right now, as we're talking, there are rocks from space older than the Earth from the formation of our solar system sitting at the bottom of that lake, just waiting to be discovered.
Seeing a rare opportunity, Bresky launches the Aquarius Project, a teen-driven program with an ambitious goal of recovering meteorite fragments from the bottom of Lake Michigan.
Something that's completely unprecedented. No attempt to recover a meteorite from a major body of water has ever been done before, so if we can pull it off, this will be a world first.
To bring the project to life, scientists from the Shedd Aquarium and the Field Museum of Natural History join the team.
You can be an expert in your particular field, but it's very difficult to be expert in multiple fields. And this particular project, we need a lot of different disciplines involved because of all the different types of things we're doing.
One of the really cool things about the Aquarius Project is that we learn about so many different types of science and fields of science and engineering while we're trying to pursue our main goal of finding the meteorite.
To determine where to begin the search, the team contacts a NASA scientist who uses Doppler radar to track the paths of meteorites.
I'm Mark Fries. I'm a scientist at Johnson Space Center.
I feel like this could be at NASA, but they decided to bring it here and share it with us. So I feel like that's very special because the fact that they trust us enough and they believe in us enough is also helpful. And that's what makes it so beautiful, because it's not just like you're just learning, like people believe in you.
The same radar that tells you about the clouds coming in on the weekly forecast, that radar is constantly surveying the skies. And so just like clouds running horizontally, it can also track things falling vertically.
Meteorites break up when they hit the atmosphere, and they usually break up in a few different episodes. We believe that the largest fragments were probably fist-sized, maybe a little bit larger, but there would be a very few of them. But the smaller you go, the more and more of them you get. And so there would have been thousands of tiny pea-sized fragments falling in the lake.
The radar images show that the meteorite fragments landed about 10 miles off the coast of Wisconsin, between the cities of Manitowoc and Sheboygan. Finding the approximate location is a good start, but the team has little idea what they'll encounter 200 feet below on the lake bottom.
One of the biggest questions that we have been getting about this project is, what does the bottom of Lake Michigan look like out there? And I keep telling people we don't actually know what's on the bottom, and they're stunned at that because millions of people live around the lake. You know, a lot of scientific research has been done on the lake, and yet we still don't actually know what the bottom of the lake is like at this particular site.
To pick up the meteorite pieces, the team begins the design of an underwater recovery sled.
Well, a lot of lake science is done through the use of sleds. Something that's dragged along the bottom, say a sled on snow. You have this sediment at the bottom of the lake, you can slide something over it. The students were incredibly involved in every step of the sled design process. Basically, the scientists involved gave a bunch of material to these students and said, how do you make this better? Can this work with meteorites? Could this work underwater?
Because meteorites often contain iron, the team decides to use powerful magnets to lift the space rocks from the lake floor. The final build is named Starfall, the first ever underwater meteorite recovery sled. In July 2018, after months of testing, it's finally time to put their recovery sled to the real test.
Right now we're headed out to the strewn field. We're headed out to the meteorite crash site in Lake Michigan, 10 miles off the coast of Wisconsin. We just set sail from Manitowoc. It's calm seas, clear skies, and we're gonna go where these space rocks are.
They lower the sled into Lake Michigan, not knowing what to expect.
This is the drop camera that's zip tied to the nose of Starfall, the meteorite sled for the Aquarius project, and it looks like we're dropped right now. There we go. Hey, hey!
All right.
And we're right side up.
Oh my God. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Oh, nice.
Fantastic, look.
That's perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's not even leaving the ground at all.
All right.
And it's, oh, hey, congratulations, everybody.
Yeah.
That is smooth.
But underwater, the cameras reveal an unforeseen problem.
Everybody was stunned to see the bottom of the lake covered with mussels. Every square inch covered with mussels.
That's a good surface for us apart from the mussels.
The invasive quagga mussels not only cover the lake bottom, but they begin sticking to the magnets on the sled.
The sand down there is iron rich through what's called magnetite. There are mountains next to the lake that have shed off a bunch of metal rich sand, and these mussels have ingested that sand and become metallic mussels. I wonder if these are magnetic. It keeps on acting like it is.
These are magnetic.
And this one too.
Despite the magnetic mussels, the team recovers some promising material from the depths below.
We just had our first successful meteorite sled run of the Starfall. And right now we're sifting through all the content that the sled has picked up. And we're hoping through all this debris we're able to find our elusive meteorite fragments.
If any of you find, you see a roundish rock, let me know and either hand it to me or I can pick it off.
We've recovered perhaps 25-gallon buckets of sediments from the lake bottom. And we've had teams going through them, sifting through them, separating them by size, trying to see if there are anything really that stands out. When we find interesting candidates, we take those to the Field Museum, and they use more advanced instruments to identify what they're made of.
They're scanning and they're even slicing open the content that we found that we think might be from space. And I don't know, we're on pins and needles right now.
We had a successful sled deployment. We've got some rocks to take back to the lab to sample. Overall, very pleased and very tired.
While the Aquarius project team waits to see what their recovery mission yields, team leader Chris Bresky knows it's already a success.
I mean, the future of this project's in the curiosity of the students that are driving it. I think that they've inspired the scientists around them and vice versa. These students have opened up a brand new field of space rock exploration in our own backyard. So I think that to see the future of that will be really exciting.
Space rocks! Scientists at the Field Museum of Natural History are analyzing the rocks found at the bottom of Lake Michigan. To see pictures of micrometeorites found there, visit greatlakesnow.org. Great Lakes Now has reported before about PFAS, a family of industrial chemicals that's been found in wells and municipal water supplies serving millions of people. Now, we bring you the story of how some researchers are working to understand the health effects that PFAS and other emerging contaminants can cause in fish and maybe in people.
Bridget Baker is the Deputy Director of the Wayne State University Water Lab. She's taking a team of researchers out onto the Detroit River aboard a boat provided by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. On the shoreline, heavy industry and a coal-burning electric plant.
We're really in close proximity to the water intake for the Great Lakes Water Authority, which is one of the main drinking water treatment plants for Detroit metro area. So we like to get an idea of what's kind of taken into the water treatment plant.
They're gathering water samples to find out what chemicals have found their way into the river that provides drinking water to communities from Lake St. Clair to Lake Erie. 50 years ago, this waterway was one of the most polluted in the country. Industrial chemicals like PCBs, dioxins, and heavy metals that lurk mostly in the river bottom. There's been a lot of research into that, and the river has improved, but now attention has turned to a different breed of contaminants.
We're really more interested in what are called emerging contaminants, or contaminants that aren't largely regulated or thought of as contaminants. So for that reason, we don't really expect them to be in the sediment or at the lower levels.
Tracy Baker, Bridget's spouse, is Wayne State Water Lab's principal investigator and director.
There are a number of contaminants that most of us know about that are industrial and agricultural that have been in the environment for a while. But there's this new group of contaminants that we're looking at. We know are in the environment, but they haven't been studied a lot, and so we're not exactly sure what the health effects might be.
PFAS and other emerging contaminants pose health risks that aren't well understood, and this team is working to change that. Step one is figuring out what chemicals are actually in the environment.
So these 4 little bottles here will test for about 100 different chemicals.
And we know at least some of those chemicals can affect human health.
A lot of the chemicals that we're interested in looking at are endocrine disrupting chemicals. So even at small amounts, they can act like hormones in our bodies. And PFAS is one of those chemicals.
PFAS, a family of many chemicals Great Lakes Now has told you about before, was used for decades in waterproofing agents, firefighting foam, Teflon pans, and even food containers. If it's waterproof, stain-proof, or non-stick, it's probably got PFAS in it, and so do some of our region's rivers.
We traditionally sample at a meter depth, but again, because of the PFAS chemicals, the way their chemical structure is, they tend to stay at the surface of the water. So for these, we sample at both the surface and at a meter depth.
It's recently been in the news a lot, and so now, a lot of us are concerned about it. It has been around since the 70s, so people knew it was there, but now it's kind of reemerged, and we're realizing that these chemicals are dubbed forever chemicals because they can stay in our body, and they can stay in our environment sometimes over 50 years.
Other chemicals found in waters like this might surprise you. Everything from cosmetics, sunscreen, and cleaning solutions to nicotine, prescription drugs, and cocaine. But are the combination of chemicals in the river water doing something to us? At the Great Lakes Water Authority's water treatment plant in Detroit, an army of zebrafish are helping us find out.
So these are the same fish that you would see in a pet store and in aquariums, but they are very hardy fish. And so because of that, and because the genome is sequenced and they develop very quickly, they've become a model for looking both at human health as well as environmental health.
These zebrafish live in untreated river water and act as canaries in the coal mine. If exposure to river water affects their health, it could affect ours too, and effects have been observed.
This is kind of our second run of this experiment, but on the first run we did see that the fish that were raised in the Detroit River water, they were smaller in size. We saw an increased mortality, and it was pretty difficult to get them to lay eggs or fertilize eggs. So we're kind of repeating that at this point. It's the Detroit River that is bringing in the water. So these fish are basically being submersed in Detroit River water. Whereas at iBio, we are looking more specifically at individual chemicals that we know are in the Detroit River.
iBio is Wayne State University's Integrated Biosciences Center, where even more zebrafish are studied. Those chemicals that were found in the river samples? In the lab, zebrafish eggs are exposed to each of them in different doses.
We have different concentrations of PFAS. This is a mixture of PFOS and PFOA. We have one concentration at the EPA health advisory limit, which is 70 parts per trillion, and then concentrations above and below that.
Zebrafish develop very rapidly, so in 2 to 3 days they're already free swimming. So we're able to look at a pretty large developmental time point in 5 days.
Over the next few days, the zebrafish are studied for abnormalities, and their behavior is analyzed.
We can then take the plate and track their behavior with this high-speed camera.
The very young zebrafish showed changes immediately.
Then we can look and see different patterns of behavior and how they respond to those chemicals and what has changed neurologically with those fish. You start to see them swimming a little bit more sporadic, and that kind of gives you an idea that something is neurologically wrong with those. It isn't an exact answer of what it is, but it gives you a clearer or better direction to start looking at in terms of what's being modified in terms of neurotransmitters or patterns in the brain circuitry. Quite abrupt, and it's hard for even the camera to stabilize to be able to capture that.
We either see hyperactivity or we can see hypoactivity. That means that something didn't go right in the development of the brain.
The health effects seen in zebrafish are worrisome indicators of what emerging contaminants like PFAS could be doing to people.
We have seen gene expression changes that are related to cancer pathways as well as fertility and endocrine disrupting pathways in those fish. It is concerning that we are seeing these changes that could easily be linked to these chemicals causing disease, including cancer as well as reproductive disease in humans.
For now, the research is focused on the Detroit River, but chemicals are entering the environment throughout the Great Lakes Basin.
One of our hopes is once we have some of this research under our belt here locally is to take it to other cities in the Midwest, but also comparing it with non-urban and non-industrialized places throughout the Great Lakes.
To watch our documentary about PFAS, visit greatlakesnow.org/foreverchemicals. In recent years, many places have seen record-setting rainfall, and all that water has to go somewhere. In Milwaukee, one urban river is being restored to a more natural state to help prevent flooding and ensure public safety.
Meandering through Milwaukee's south side is the Kinnickinnick River. Surrounded by more than 600 homes and businesses, it drains the most densely populated watershed in the state of Wisconsin. Patrick Elliott is a senior project manager for the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District.
The Kinnickinnick River watershed is 26 square miles. It's relatively small, but it's fully developed. It's fully urbanized.
Flowing northeast, the river empties into the Milwaukee estuary before heading into Lake Michigan. Looking at the concrete channel today, it's hard to believe that it was once a natural, tree-lined river before the city expanded onto its banks during the first half of the 20th century.
As the city expanded, as it moved from basically the downtown area and expanded out, more and more of the Kinnickinnick River was developed. And so as this development occurred, there were more impervious surfaces that were created, streets and sidewalks and parking lots, rooftops, all these surfaces that don't allow rain to soak in. The runoff from the rain will flow quickly to these stream corridors.
All those hard surfaces increased stormwater runoff into the Kinnickinnick River and increased flooding.
It created problems back in the 1950s and 1960s, and their approach to handling this issue back in the day was to try and streamline it. And so they just said, hey, let's create a nice clean channel that will move the water as quickly as possible out of this area.
More than 7 miles of the river and its tributaries were lined with concrete. And while it worked to quickly move water away from areas upstream, the new design actually increased flood events downriver.
So in this section, at essentially the bottom of the funnel where everything is draining to, you actually made the problem worse.
It's a problem that still exists today.
Unfortunately, we've had several years within Milwaukee and with the state of Wisconsin where we're seeing those flood events more and more. And it makes people understand that flooding is a serious danger, it's a serious hazard.
Even without overflowing its banks, the river poses a major safety risk during storm events.
The river comes up so quickly and it goes down so quickly. And within this section, it can move water up to 20 feet per second, which is faster than whitewater rapids. So just imagine having whitewater rapids running through a dense urban neighborhood right in behind people's backyards. And unfortunately, because of that situation, people, if they fall in or slip in, they're not getting out, and we've had several deaths on the Kinnickinnic River over the years.
In addition to flooding and dangerous storm flows, the concrete corridor is also responsible for a major decline in the river's fish population. Brennan Dow is with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
In a natural habitat, you would allow fish to be able to use things like rocks or wood to be able to reproduce. This type of habitat with the concrete lined channel, it kind of takes away that type of habitat for these different fish species that are looking to use that to reproduce.
The concrete channelization also means there's no way for the river to naturally filter out pollutants before they reach Lake Michigan.
Kinnickinnic River is known as one of the more urban rivers that discharges into Lake Michigan. Whatever makes it into this river will end up eventually finding its way into Lake Michigan. Specifically in how that pollution gets into the lake is just straight down the gauntlet.
To address these problems, in 2009, the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District proposed a plan to remove the concrete from the river corridor.
It started as a concrete removal project. As they completed the initial phases of that planning analysis, they got more data on the flood levels and the flood concerns. And so then it changed into not only a concrete removal channel restoration project, but into a huge flood management project. So this section, we're actually finishing up the last bit of concrete removal, and then they place river stone down in the bottom of the channel. They'll also place boulders, and they'll strategically place those as places where fish that are trying to pass upstream, and they can rest behind a boulder to be relieved from the current.
To see what the finished product will look like, you can look downstream at a stretch of the river that's been restored within Pulaski Park. Here, the project has grown beyond concrete removal and flood management into a full-fledged community restoration effort. Travis Hope is a lifelong resident of Milwaukee's South Side and president of the Kinnickinnic River Neighborhoods in Action Group.
This is a great project because everybody's come together, all different entities, and just really trying to make a change and do something positive for the neighborhood. The River Project has been like a spark plug in getting things going in the community. So one of the things that we did is we got public art into the neighborhood. That was never in this neighborhood before. We have a brand new playground. That playground was outdated. We have a new basketball court. We have a brand new pedestrian bridge. I think this project's been very positive for the community and gives people something to look forward to. We're gonna have this beautiful park and just a place where people can have pride in.
And there's another community benefiting from the river restoration.
You're allowing fish species and other different types of wildlife to be able to use things that haven't been available to them before. You're adding habitat, you're laying the groundwork for things to be able to come and inhabit that habitat. If you get a lot of rain during the time of the year that salmon want to go up the river to reproduce, you might see salmon further up than you would have in the past.
In all, the project will restore 7 miles of stream within the Kinnickinnic River Basin.
So as we construct these projects, as we widen the floodplain, we are creating more space for the water to pool. As we open up some of these bridges, we're allowing the water to flow under those bridges and not back up into the neighborhoods and the business corridors. So as we construct sections of the project, we will be reducing flood risk.
If you're able to bring back green space and trails that people are able to use along what used to be a concrete lined channel, that really allows people to kind of use the resource that comes back to the river. So if you build it, they will come.
Thanks for watching. For more on these stories and the Great Lakes in general, visit greatlakesnow.org. When you get there, you can follow us on social media or subscribe to our newsletter to get updates about our work. See you out on the lakes.
This program is brought to you by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, Lori and Tim Wadhams, the Richard C. Devereaux Foundation for Energy and Environmental Programs at Detroit Public Television, the Polk Family Fund, Eve and Jerry Young, the Americana Foundation, the Brookby Foundation, and
the Consumers Energy Foundation is committed to serving Michigan, from preserving our state's natural resources and sustaining our future, to continuing business growth, academic achievement, and community involvement. Learn more at consumersenergy.com/foundation.
and viewers like you. Thank you.